Hello and welcome to Vegan Bloomers. My name is Luna. I am the founder. Our mission is to connect, inspire and learn. And today our special guest is Mary. So welcome, Mary.
Thank you for having me, Luna. It's a
You're
pleasure and
so
honor to be
welcome.
here.
Thank you for joining us. So let's begin with where you're based, how old you are, and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I live in Toronto, Canada, and I am turning 53 this year. And I'm Mary Reid, and I'm a professor at the University of Toronto. So that's my career. And I have a husband and 2 daughters, and we are a vegan family.
Wonderful. So your children, are they young or are they adults now?
They are adults now. They're in university, in
Okay.
second and third year university. And they, while they live with me under my roof, we operate as a vegan family. And 3 out of 4 of us are vegans 100% of the time.
That's amazing. So happy to hear. So what are you professor in? What's the subject you teach?
Math education.
Nice. Very nice. So let's talk about your vegan journey. So let us know, where did your vegan journey begin and how old were you when it all started? Tell us your story.
So my vegan journey is quite unique because I was really influenced and impacted by my 16-year-old daughter back then, and that was almost 5 years ago. So she came to her father and I, my husband and I, one day. We had just come back from a conference. They were on their own for a few days. And she said, I have to tell you something. And I thought, oh no, what's going on? And she was so serious. And she said, I am vegan, and from now on, I will not be eating these items. And I knew what vegan was because I had students while teaching at university who were vegan. And I thought, oh my God, that's so extreme. Who would become vegan? And here my 16-year-old daughter is telling me she's vegan. And I responded, along with my husband, with great trepidation, lots and lots of hesitation too. And I said, are you sure you want to be on this vegan lifestyle? And she said, absolutely, there's no stopping me. And we had these preconceived notions, like much of society, that vegans were undernourished, they were pale, their hair was going to fall. Like, I thought her hair was going to fall out. I was so ignorant about veganism. So I told her, I said, what if your hair falls out? What if you don't get enough calcium in your diet or B12? You're already so tiny and thin. Are you sure you want to be vegan? And she rolled her eyes like a typical teenager. And she tried to educate me and said, those are all misconceptions. Those are all fallacies. You wait and see. And she's the kind of person, like her mother and her father, is like, I'm going to prove it to you. So I said, okay, I'll give it. So, my husband and I, Stephen and I, we just looked at each other and said, okay, I'll give it a year. I'll see what happens. Whatever. And I'm the cook of I cook the everyday items, and she was really good. I just made sure she ate a lot of beans, a lot of nuts, a lot of tofu. We always ate tofu. And it was items like milk and eggs where, we had to be really careful because she couldn't eat that. And I never really introduced a lot of cheese in my diet anyways. So it was easy to prepare meals. And at that point, we were eating a lot of chicken, we were eating steak. And whenever I baked, I would always use eggs, butter. So, she kind of showed me the ropes as to how to eat, because I would watch her And she would be able to, eat the rice that I would make and the tofu and all the stir fry and vegetables. But instead of the meat, she would add tofu, or she would add cashew nuts, or, some lentil beans, whatever, to support the protein. But I really thought she was going to be protein deficient, calcium deficient, B12 deficient, and undernourished. I really, really was concerned. So a year later, she was thriving. And it was almost 3 years ago. This spring will be my 3rd year vegan anniversary. And she's been vegan for almost 5 years. So I watched her, and she was, I think, in grade 11 at the time. And then I think it was in grade 12. We said, let's watch something on Netflix. We were just flipping through the channels. And she said, have you watched Cowspiracy? I said, no. Let's watch it. So we watched Cowspiracy, and I was amazed that I learned so much. From that film, I realized that agriculture, is the leading cause of water consumption. Like thousands of liters are used up to eat one hamburger. It's also the leading cause of pollution, deforestation. It is more responsible for greenhouse gases than the entire transportation industry. And it was transformational, that film. But I wasn't convinced yet. I said, okay, that's really interesting. And me, myself, being an academic, I had to do my own research. So I hunkered down in front of the computer and I started to do my own research, looking at the science behind veganism, looking at the science behind farming and agriculture and its impact on Mother Earth. And then I went down this rabbit hole, and it wasn't just about the environment. I started to watch clips of Earthlings. I think almost every vegan I know has watched some of that show, documentary. It's narrated by Joaquin Phoenix, who's one of my major inspirations. And then also Dominion. And I couldn't watch it. The documentary was full of horrific footage of unspeakable abuse and crimes to animals. And when I watched bits of it, I had to go and cuddle with my dogs just to make myself feel better. And then I thought, this is so illogical. How could I treat my dogs like my family, yet not care about the pigs and the cows and the lambs and the zoo animals and the lab animals that are being tortured for experiments? Yet I eat hamburgers and I'll eat chicken and I just watched a documentary about broiler chickens, and oh God, hundreds of thousands are bred into existence just into a life of misery so that people can appease their taste buds for 15 minutes. It's beyond me. But I'm on the vegan side now. But before I crossed that vegan line, I was still contemplating all that. And it was because of those films, as well as my research, as well, mostly because of my 16-year-old daughter then, she's almost 21 now, who modeled for us that veganism was a lifestyle that could be attained easily. And that's when I said, that's it, I'm going vegan. And that was May 3 years ago. So 2019, May of 2019. And it was it was easy for me. I never really liked meat anyways. I was never a huge meat eater. I always loved the vegetables and the carbs more. So it was pretty easy for me to do that. And I've done veganuaries before, where, January, you don't eat any meat. And we've always had like 2 or 3 days of meatless, like meatless Mondays, meatless weekends. So it was easy to transition. What was hard was, at that point, my husband was he was a meat eater, and my other daughter was a meat eater. So it became very difficult to prepare 2 distinct meals.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Sorry, my Apple Watch thought I said Siri. Oh God, sorry about that. And I should turn my phone off.
Sorry.
Yes, Siri, you should apologize.
Yeah, so that was my journey, and there's no turning back. And I owe so much to Kiana for being that 16-year-old who really made an impact and influence. And she wasn't this judgy vegan who would look at my chicken if I was eating it and say, oh my God, do you realize that's a broiler chicken? Or, do you realize what the cows do to the earth? Like she never judged. She did her own thing. She modeled for us, and she let us navigate our own journeys.
That's incredible. What an awesome story. See, kids just proves kids have such an influence too on us and the world. Like, that's such an amazing story. Thank you for sharing. So when you how far along did it take your husband to join you on the vegan journey too?
I was getting a little frustrated with preparing the different meals, and I hear it on Facebook posts and social media pages that I join with vegan communities where I'm a vegan, but my husband's not, or my boys aren't, or my girls aren't. And it's really difficult because I want to, and it's the temptation to, you're eating this meal and they're eating that meal, and those temptations are there. They're very strong to want to eat that piece of meat. Everyone's eating it, right? So it was really hard for a few weeks. I think it was throughout the summer of 2019. This was all pre-pandemic. And then Game Changers came out, and we watched it, and it was early fall of 2019. So I had been vegan for 4 months, and we watched it together. And it was an amazing documentary. It was one that, I don't know if you've watched Game Changers, but it was about the athletes, and had experiments about, how do I say this,
how it affects men's sexual drive.
Yeah. I wanted to say it in a really clean way. Yeah, and it was it was entertaining, but at the same time it was educational. And once again, we said, you know what, let's do our own research. We did our own research. We fact checked Game Changers. And I know some people say, this scientific study wasn't truly scientific, but we fact checked it, and he went vegan from then on. So he's been vegan for almost, it will be 2.5 years, almost 3 years. There's no turning back. And he's very much like our daughter, non-judgmental, and he's not going to be evaluative of what you eat on your plate, but he's going to model the kindness on his plate. And so it's easy. So when I cook, there is absolutely no animal products on our table, on our plates. And we transitioned slowly. So the first time we had Thanksgiving, we did a turkey, but we also did a tofurkey. And then Christmas came along, and the turkeys became breasts. So we did turkey breasts for the meat eaters, because we have extended family who come to we host, Thanksgiving, and we celebrate Christmas. And then we do our own tofurkey. And then this year, we've gone completely vegan. So if you're a meat eater, be prepared to go meatless. We're serving, we're cooking, and there's no complaints. There are so many amazing products out there that you don't need to eat meat. They replicate the meat. The science behind the food is just amazing. It's phenomenal. You do not need to eat meat when you've got, we've got the Very Good Butcher, which is located in Vancouver, Canada. And we do it's called the Roast Beast. You can't tell the difference. In fact, my daughter, who does eat meat, my younger one, not much of it. When she's out on her own, she'll eat she says, she'd rather just eat tofu. She does eat fish sometimes, but she prefers the very good butchers, meatless turkey compared to the real turkey. So
Wow,
yeah,
impressive.
yeah. So we even when people come over, it used to be when people come over, we would buy meat sausages because we knew they were meat eaters. No more, never. You come
Good
into
for
our
you.
house, yeah, we are a vegan household, and that's just part of our culture, norms, and rules. No meat under this roof.
So when you first introduced that rule, like how did the people around you respond to it?
Perfectly fine, and I feel that should be the case, that when we it's our house and we set the menu. So obviously, and they understand why we're vegans. We're vegans for so many reasons. First and foremost, it's about to stop animal cruelty. It's a moral obligation for us. And secondly, it's a moral obligation to Mother Earth and the environment. We are in a climate crisis, and we're doing everything we can to stop this climate crisis. So it's not for selfish reasons. It's not like, oh, because we're not in this so-called cult. Some people think that we're part of a cult. No, we're doing this for the betterment of the future. So I think, yeah, there's been absolutely no complaints.
That's incredible. I'm impressed. You obviously got some very supportive friends and family.
Yes, we do. Absolutely.
So what's your other daughter? Is she older or younger than?
She's younger. She's a year younger, and she's been wonderful. She never ever asked. At the very beginning, she did ask, can you cook me a chicken breast or a salmon fillet? And we had one small fight over it and said, absolutely not. I'm not doing that. This is a vegan household. She does go, she's off to university. She lives in Montreal, but she comes home like every typical university student for summer, for, reading week, for Christmas vacation. And while she was living with us, she did ask for me to go buy, I think, a salmon steak or fillet. And I said, no, I'm not doing that. And she was a little bit upset, but got over it and understood my point of view and loves the food I cook. Every time she comes home, she says, oh my God, I miss roasted vegetables. I miss your lasagna. So I'm the typical mom. When I know my girls are home, I cook their favorite meals, a big pot of chili, a big pot of curry masala, with basmati rice. There's no undernourishment. I'm not eating cardboard. You don't need bacon to make things taste better. We have absolutely amazing meals. And I have to say, I have amazing vegan friends who share recipes, and I'm inspired by them.
Oh, that's amazing. Sounds like we all need to come to your house.
No, not my house. You need to go to Robin and Andy's house, because Robin is my inspiration. Every time you interviewed Andy a few months ago,
yeah.
And they are part of our V-gang. We've comprised this V-gang because it's very lonely. I'll tell you, being a vegan is I don't know anyone at work. I don't know anyone who's vegan. I know a couple of vegetarians, which is wonderful, but no vegans. And these 3 high school friends of ours who we've reconnected since 2018, just, or maybe it was 2019, I forget. It's been really heartwarming and emotionally supportive, because not only do they understand why we've chosen this lifestyle, but they're an inspiration. And I've gained, like, Robin should do a cooking show. She should do some sort of cookbook, because her meals are out of the world.
Wow. Well, Robin, if you're listening, this is your call. We're telling you, you need to make one now.
Yes.
It's been put public, so no excuses. Love it. Yeah, I've seen because I'm friends with him on Facebook, obviously because of the interview we had. I see a lot of his. He makes these little cool little videos of his food that he eats, and it always looks so good. So it makes total sense that you say that.
Yeah.
So, what would you say, as we're on the subject of food, what is your favourite go-to plant-based meal?
I have so many of them. And the ones that I really, really enjoy aren't the fake meat ones, to be honest. And that's fine. And some people, there's that controversy. Why do you want fake meat when you can have the real meat? And then, you get into this, well, it doesn't have suffering involved. And I make an amazing masala, which is gram masala and some chili powder and turmeric and a little bit of curry. And I just put whatever vegetables there are. And I grind up some cashews and coconut milk. And it's a 1-pot meal on a bed of basmati rice. So every time I make that, it's gone. Like, I can't make enough. I know I'm going to be eating it for at least 3 days because I make a huge pot. And it's, we lick the pot basically because it is so delicious. And chili is a good staple for us. And I do the quinoa with the chili as the replacement for the ground beef. But there's just so many good ground beef replacements out there too, like round ground that Eves makes. And there's just I make an amazing lasagna, and I replace it with obviously dairy-free cheese. The list goes on. I can't say there's one favorite, and it's all dependent. Last night, I made the most incredible soup, and it was lentil and white navy beans, and I just put in whatever vegetables I had. And it was so cold, like it's -25 in Toronto. It's ridiculous.
Oh wow!
So it was a perfect night for soup with fresh bread. So there is, my taste buds have not suffered because there's no animal products in our kitchen on my plate. Absolutely. I could assure you that. And if you are thinking of going vegan, you can do it.
Absolutely. I've often said, and I think one of the biggest things that kind of pushed me to actually finally take the plunge to go vegan in the first place was the food. Like honestly, because I was really fussy eater growing up. I wasn't exposed to very many different foods. So when I lived in America for a little while, a friend of mine, she's pescatarian, but she introduced me to so many vegan whole food restaurants, and they were divine. And I was like, oh my gosh, I never ever expected myself to be like so in love with food, let alone whole food, plant-based food. So yeah, I can totally vouch for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. There's absolutely no excuse. And my pet peeves are people who say, oh, are you going to eat cardboard? Because you think vegans eat cardboard. Or no, my meals are probably more tasteful and delicious and healthier than your bacon wrapped stuff, cruelty basically, right? So there's I made an amazing avocado vegan bacon, lettuce sprinkled with pine nuts and sunflower seeds. I took a picture of it, sent it to my daughters, and they're like, oh my God, you got to make that when I come home. And they, and we eat that now regularly. It's just there is no shortage of food ideas that are plant-based.
Yeah, there's so many. I remember you saying that you were a baker. Like, did you find having to change the recipes into a plant-based version difficult when you first started? Or was it something you found easy?
When I baked,
Yeah.
I don't bake a lot. I just bake banana bread and I just don't add the eggs. That's
Oh,
all.
okay.
Yeah. And I always, when Kiana turned vegan, like she wasn't even vegetarian. She went meat eater to vegan, overnight and not turning back. And I remember telling her, you need eggs, you need to drink milk, you need calcium, you need nutrients. Like, why don't you just go vegetarian? And she said no. And I couldn't understand. I always thought I had those misconceptions that, oh, why veganism? It's so extreme. But now I realize the egg industry, I did some research. I listen to podcasts now, and I do a lot of research because I want to be informed so that when people ask me, I want to capitalize on that moment, right? Because I've had people ask me, well, why don't you eat eggs? You're not killing animals when you don't eat eggs. And listen to Earthling Ed argue or debate with some other university students across America. And the egg industry is deplorable. It's, I would say, even worse than the beef industry and the cattle industry. Those poor hens just go through such disgusting and unspeakable lives, you know, having to produce an egg a day, and it depletes their nourishment. I've seen pictures of their feathers falling out, and they're exhausted. And some of them are pecking. If they don't get, some of them eat their own eggs so that they can bring that calcium back into their bodies. A lot of them die of osteoporosis, bone fractures, because they're so depleted of that calcium because they're producing eggs every day. Naturally, you know, before they were genetically engineered to produce an egg a day, they produced an egg a month. Like, can you imagine going from producing one egg a month, because it takes so much out of your body, to producing an egg a day? It's wrong. And why are we doing this? For 15 minutes of our sensations in our mouth for taste? It's wrong. It's unethical, it's immoral, and it's not justifiable. So that's, you know, eggs, butter, oh, the milk, you know, the raping of cows so that they can have babies born and then their babies taken away so that we can drink their milk. Like, that's, you know, I breastfed my 2 daughters. I would not like to breastfeed, you know, give my milk to, like, it doesn't make sense. Why do we continue these practices when we know it's abusive and it doesn't make sense?
I think there's definitely a lot of dissociation, because
Yeah.
we are, as humans, we are humans of habit, and we often don't question habits. You know, we have to be really conscious in order to even suddenly think, oh, actually, this is a bit weird. Like, let's have a look into that and like see where it's come from and like why we do that. So yeah, it's definitely, there's a lot of dissociation involved.
You
So
nailed it on the head. Dissociation. Like, I remember having chicken wings as a kid, and I think it might have been from KFC. I'm not sure. My dad used to, like, talk about traditions and habits. I come from a culture, I'm Chinese, where eating meat was evidence of being wealthy. You needed meat for protein. I think everyone feels that way too. And when you go to a Chinese or a wedding banquet, it's usually 8 to 12 course meals, and there's pork, there's chicken, there's fish, there's shrimp, there's, you know, every sort of animal on your plate. And it was a sign of wealth. So I've had to leave those deeply embedded cultural understandings, because we need to break the cycle of abuse. But that disassociation. So I remember coming back to that memory, eating KFC and then seeing a feather on the chicken wing. I thought, this is disgusting. But, you know, I saw a post the other day on social media where a woman was absolutely horrified because she saw the chicken head in her KFC bucket, because they have disassociated that what you're eating actually comes from a sentient being. Like, it doesn't, you shouldn't. If you feel so traumatized by that head, then you should be eating it, because you're eating a sentient being that deserves a life of happiness.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sad, it's very sad, because I think, as you said, from your culture, I think a lot of it is stemmed from, you know, a sign of being wealth, because obviously when you look back in history, it wasn't normal for us to eat loads of meat. Like it's come from, you know, from needing it in the beginning because we were so scarce of anything, to then it being a sign of wealth in a lot of cases. And then they're like, oh, now we've got a taste for this, so let's create more so we can create money. It's just, yeah, it's wrong. But yeah.
Yeah, the profits, the capitalism, it's just, I think the UK are a little bit ahead as far as vegan options and the education of veganism. I think you are way more ahead than we are here in North America, from what I gather, and just from listening to Earthling Ed Winters, and understanding, you know, their policies. But we need people in powerful positions to understand the impact of animal agriculture and to make changes in policies and legislation and in laws. And I was really delighted to know that Eric Adams is he just became the mayor of New York, and he's been a long time vegan, and he's already starting to change. Yeah, he's starting to change policies of what could be served in cafeterias and schools. So we need that imbalance of power to be balanced out. So we need people sitting in those seats who understand the science, the data, and the research that clearly demonstrates the devastation of Mother Earth, of the environment, because of animal agriculture.
So. Yeah, definitely. That's great news. Thanks for sharing that. Didn't know. I had no idea about that. So that's awesome.
Well, you're in the UK, so you wouldn't know, right? So
well, I don't know. We have quite a lot of info on what goes on across the world, to be fair. But I hadn't heard about that. But then I don't follow politics and stuff, so that might be why.
Yeah, I don't usually follow politics either, but I think, and sadly, we have to get political in order to make change, because the politicians hold so much power. And here in Canada, we have a lot of funds that go to the dairy farmers and animal agriculture, because it's they have to make some sort of profit. And I wish that there was money used to transition these kinds of farms into plant-based, right? Like, just follow the science. That's all they need to do. So we need people in power to make decisions about our laws that support veganism, bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure eventually we'll get there. I have faith.
Me too.
It will happen eventually.
Yeah.
Just keep fighting. So let's go on to talk a little bit about activism. Have you ever been involved in any form of activism yourself?
I've been involved in a lot of activism when it comes to cross-racial solidarity. You know, I've been to dismantling anti-Asian racism marches with my vegan friend, Charles, who he's the pet store owner, and you interviewed him. I've also been to Every Child Matters, which is a term we use when it comes to Indigenous children. Indigenous populations and communities across Canada have been treated inhumanely, crimes of humanity, since colonization, since European settlers. So I've been to those kinds of marches, and I'm actively an advocate for anti-oppression and anti-racism, coming from a racialized identity myself, but not so much about veganism. And because I don't want to come off as being judgy and pushy, because veganism is a choice, right? Whereas your identity is not a choice. So I could walk into a room, and obviously major parts of my intersecting identities is that I'm Asian, I'm a woman, I'm middle-aged, I'm privileged, I work in a great university, I'm educated, but all those are invisible. And my identity as being vegan is invisible. So people don't see that, but people do see me as being an Asian, and my gender expression is female. So I want people to choose that vegan lifestyle, and I want to educate in a very caring, compassionate, and positive way. Whereas anti-racism advocacy, I'm more in your face, because a lot of people don't have a choice about their racial identity, right? Especially when it's visible out there, and there's so many implicit biases about racialized people. So that, I think that's why my activism and my advocacy hasn't been as strong. Having said that, I've been on vegan social media pages where there's been a lot of racism, especially when the pandemic came out, and I'm scrolling through the comments about those damn Chinese people, if only they didn't eat bats. And I would respond and report them to the moderator and saying, you can't just generalize that all Chinese people eat bats. And, calling this pandemic the Kung flu, like Trump. I'm of Chinese descent. Now I'm a vegan. I'm with you, but please don't make those blanket generalizations. And, nothing's done. So I've left those social media pages because they're permitting these kinds of comments, these angry comments towards Asian communities. Yeah. So, it's complex, because we have intersecting identities. And it was very sad, and it created a lot of harm for me, because I think people think, oh, you're Chinese, you must eat meat. No, I don't. And I don't eat bats. Yeah. So very sad. Yeah.
Well, it's great that you're doing your bit in that aspect. And I think it's important as well for the audience that aren't vegans to recognise too that actually vegans aren't just about the animals. Like, we have compassion for everybody. There's this stigma that vegans only care about animals, and you are proof that is not true, because you're fighting for children and you're fighting for equality. So that's incredible. So thank you for sharing that.
That's a great insight, Luna. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So how would you say then, overall, that veganism has impacted your life?
It has transformed my life. And I think my 16-year-old daughter, you think that parenting is all about supporting your children and showing them the ways, but in this case it was reciprocal. She showed us the way. So it has been transformational, in that I know that I'm doing my best to support, to stop the abuse of animals, and to really understand how animal agriculture is the leading cause of so many deplorable practices. And it's been good. But at the same time, I feel awful, because when I changed, let's just say that before the pandemic, when my faculty meetings had food, they now know what vegan food is. No butter, no eggs, right? And so it's not only changed my life, but it's like a ripple effect. So now my colleagues know that that little sandwich that's on the corner of that table that says Mary, that's a vegan sandwich. It means there's no animal products in that. So they're like, oh, you're vegan? I didn't know that. Oh, what made you turn vegan? So there's that ripple effect. So I have to learn how to educate others and share my story more, which is why I've come to you, because I do want to share my story. Not a lot of people know that I'm vegan. I don't come right out and say I'm vegan, because I don't want people to think that I'm judging them. I just
Mm.
want them to hear my story. And then maybe, their journey might be a little bit more progressive, where they have meatless Mondays and that they start with that. And then maybe it goes to every other day is animal free, plant-based. And then it just, might turn into full-fledged veganism within a year or two. So that's how it's been for me, is that I want that change to happen, but I'm very impatient, but I have to do it in a very engaging and positive way.
Yeah, and I absolutely, because I can relate to you a lot, because like I am very well known for being very accepting. And when I first came into veganism, I did find it really hard to not judge others, because I had so much anger in the cause. But now I've kind of, you know, I don't I don't blame the people. I blame carnism. Like, it's not their fault, So I've had to explore different ways, and that's part of the reason why I did this, because I felt in my heart I needed to speak out. I needed to do something other than just change my own lifestyle. Like, I wanted people to know what I had learned and to be able to express myself, because I think it's really important to be able to do that. I used to shy away, and to be honest, in some senses, sometimes I do still shy away about my veganism, because I don't talk about it very much. But I've started to, especially recently, to realise, actually, because I was having a conversation with somebody a few days ago, that actually I have a right to talk about it more. You know, just because I'm talking about it doesn't mean to say I'm being judgy, because yeah, I want to educate people, and I want them to understand me as well. Like, we all want to be understood, and people can't understand you if you don't express who you are. And so yeah, like, this is my form of activism. So there are, and I want to break that assumption too, that where people think that vegans are judgy and pushy and aggressive, because although that may be true for some vegans, it's not true for all of them. And actually, from my experience, it's not true for most of them. So this is kind of my way of trying to do many things all in one, and obviously as well, like, supporting each other, whether you're vegan or whether you're not vegan. Like, we're here, I'm here just to educate and hopefully to inspire people, because it is an awesome way of life.
It is. And thank you, Luna, for providing this space. And this form of activism is really important. It really is. If I can change just one person's lifestyle and work towards that vegan journey, then it's all worth it, right? It just makes a huge difference. So your activism and your advocacy, I know, is being felt here in our household. So absolutely.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So our last question before we end is, for those people out there that are not yet vegan, but they're kind of curious and thinking about it, what one piece of advice would you give to them?
Oh, that's a hard question, because it all depends on their context, their situation, what their location is. Are they the main, are they cooking for a family of people? Yeah, it's really hard. All I would say is, if you proclaim to be an animal lover, you may have a pet, you may have a cat, you may have a dog, a hamster, rabbit. If you claim to love them, be a real animal lover, then why do you love your pet or animals in general? I love horses, whatever. And permit the torture, abuse, and slaughter of other animals. Because if you're eating a hamburger, or you've got chicken breast on your plate, then that's what you're doing. You are being hypocritical. So play with that in your mind and wrestle with that, grapple with that cognitive dissonance. And I guarantee that you will make the right choice once you bring to life and be critically conscious about the animal abuse. It doesn't take much. Go on YouTube and just animal agriculture videos, PETA. You just have to watch 2 minutes and you will see the truth in the unspeakable crimes of, I'm sorry, I'm going to be very graphic here. Cows having their throats cut, pigs being electrocuted, baby male chicks being thrown into a shredder live. If you don't feel right with those images, then stop eating meat. Because otherwise, if you continue to eat meat, then you are endorsing that abuse. And I'm going to say it as it is. So don't be a hypocrite. Go plant-based, stop the abuse of animals, and be kind to Mother Earth and be healthy. Because we know, like my husband, he had cholesterol levels that were borderline high. He became a vegan, got his blood tested. He is in perfect range now. And that's because of the vegan diet. And in fact, I was anemic before I was vegan. I'm still anemic. I'll always be anemic for all my life, but my levels have been better, more so than ever. So cut the crap and the fallacies and the misconceptions that you're going to be undernourished, that you're not going to get enough protein, that you're not going to get enough calcium, because there's living proof out there through blood tests that you can be perfectly healthy as well. Morally, ethically, healthy, all those reasons.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. That's a nice different take that we've had on here. So yeah, that's good to bring that to the table. So thank you. So before we say goodbye, if there is anyone in the audience that is watching that would like to get in touch with you personally, how can they get hold of you?
They could check me out on Facebook if you want. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And I will put a link in the comments, in the description even, of how they can find you on Facebook. So thank you again so much for coming. And
I'm gonna shout out to my V gang, Charles, Robin, Andy, and my husband Stephen. We're the V gang, and we hang out together and we love each other more than anything.
Oh, that's beautiful. Love it. Thank you again.
Thank you, Luna.
Thank you guys for watching. I hope that you found this inspirational, and you make new connections. And if you haven't already, please do come and join our group on Facebook, Vegan Bloomers. If you are vegan already, please do get in touch. I am on the lookout for new vegans to interview. So you can either find me on Facebook, Luna Bloomer, or send me an email, veganbloomers@gmail.com. Thank you again for listening, and I will see you next time. Much love.